Hi, this is Jim Durkin. I want to thank you for attending today's webinar on data entry forms in the Impact Suite for ACT version 2010 or above. What you're seeing right now is ACT version 16. We have our navigation bar on the left-hand side, and we have custom tables. Inside of here we have two custom tables, one called Pledges and one called Calls. So actually, let's just use our calls table, and I'm going to go into any one of these records and double-click on it. Inside of here, this is a data entry screen. This is what we're going to be focusing on today. The first thing I want to show you is that you actually have multiple data entry screens that you can use. The same way ACT has multiple data entry screens on a drop-down, we have the same thing. So we may want to go to our order fulfillment look of this screen, or we might want to go and flip back into our service calls look at this screen. Now, we know we have these multiple data entry screens because we can go down here to Options on the navigation bar. And if I look under the Options, we go to Data. Here's our two data entry screens. I can create a new screen right from here, but I can also modify existing screens and set screens to be the defaults. So let's go and create a new form. So I hit create, and I'll call this webinar demo form. Data entry form has been created. It tells us. Okay, our data entry form opened up in our design area. Now what it did by default is it added the fields that it found in the table to the data entry forms. So we have kind of a below the line and above the line philosophy here. The above the line is system fields. So these are fields like who the record manager is for this record, who last edited this record, which contacts this record is attached to. Then you have fields below the line that are specific to this type of transaction, like I have a number field here that it added. I have a parts cost field here that it added. And again, it just found these fields and added them in basically an alphabetical order, top to bottom, left to right. So some of these may not be in the exact position that you want, so I can actually just take these and drag these around. And I can resize them too. So I have a notes field here. I have a checkbox field here. So I'm just going to go and look at stuff here, resizing certain things. As you can see, I can group together like fields visually. So we have all the date fields kind of together. We have all the numeric fields together. And once I get this into the order that I want it in, I'm just going to have to hit save here. File was saved, and I'm going to go and close this down. And now I'll have my webinar demo. And what I'm going to do is say set that one as default. So let me go and save my changes here. Again, I'm back on my calls window, and I'm going to highlight one of these, and I'm going to edit it. And now I have my new data entry form. Now what's nice about having multiple data entry forms is you may have different people doing different stages. Order fulfillment looks at one type, production looks at another, data entry people look at different fields, and you can create different fields for different layouts. Well, let's go into and design this a little bit further. Say if this was just for a simple data entry person, and I just need to have date received and other fields like that, I can come along and remove multiple fields here. I'm just going to select them and hit the delete key. And again, I'm just going to clean this up. Now, I'm going to clean this up pretty far here. I'm going to actually take it down to only a couple fields. Date received, anticipated service date. I have these fields here. I'm not even going to put in the cost in here. I want the data entry person on the field to just give a quick, oh, we anticipate that we'll schedule you by next Thursday. But she doesn't even need to see any of this information up here, the above the line information. and we don't need to see the line here. So what I have is a very simple data entry screen that's almost like a dialog box. And what I can do is make it even feel more like a dialog box by going to our buttons. Now up here on the top tab, we have the ability to change the toolbox. This is a toolbox. If I went over to here, fields, these are the fields that I can put on. These are the panels that I can put on, the lists. Let's go over here to buttons. And I'm going to just put an OK button right here. I'm going to put a cancel button right here. Very simple. As you can see, this looks very much like a dialog box. And so let's close this, save changes, yes. And now let's go and create a new one. So user comes in, Mary gets a phone call from Chris Huffman. He wants to schedule something new. There it is. I just said schedule. Date received, well, that's today. And anticipated service date is always 7 days from today. Now I had a data entry those. I can go into this designer, and actually I can set existing conditions for these. See this date received? Any one of these objects that we throw onto the screen or we have onto the screen has a properties down here. Like the OK button says the word OK. You may want to use the word save. That's a property of this button control. Well, let's go to this date received, and you can see it also has properties. So we can say default days to add. So we want to say default to today's date. Well, true. I want date received to be today's date. Anticipated service date, default days to add, I'm going to make this 7 days in the future. So just by setting 2 properties, I now have a very quick way to do data entry right there. So date received today, anticipated service date. Now that's really nice because you may have, I want to do a call back in 30 days, or in 180 days we do a follow-up piece of email with them. That can all be set inside of here. So there we go. 2 buttons, I can create an entry. Well, let's go in and look at this a bit further. Now you might wonder why I'll keep stretching this box out. When I'm clicking on here and I'm modifying an existing one, when you close this down, you can't see the design button. Now I'm logged onto the database as administrator, so I can actually design right from this window here. And that's what I keep doing. I keep saying, I go to this record, I modify it, and I can say, oh, I don't see my design button. Let me make this a little bit bigger. There it is. I hit design, and I go into the designer. It's the same as if I went underneath the data entry form tab like I did earlier and design there. Well, let's see what else we can do underneath here. Now, there are different objects and different controls we can add to the form. This may be a data-rich environment, and you may want to start putting in tab controls. Tab controls can have multiple tab pages under it. So I can come into here, put this on tab page 1. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. And then on tab page 2, I'll go to my existing fields. I want to have the date approved. I want to have that the follow-up was required. And I want it to be a little bit bigger here because I want to put some notes. Problem reported. And I just put in notes in here. So again, you see what we did is we created 2 tab pages underneath there. And we kept our save and cancel methodology, or philosophy I should say. That this is more like a dialog box. And let's just take it from the top here. I just want to create a new record, and there it is. Now, if this happens to you where it comes up and it needs to be a little bit bigger, you see that where it came up and it wasn't exactly big enough for the save and close? Well, that's because our layout in here needs to be a little bit bigger also. Sometimes. Yep. Sometimes there's objects. As you see that? See that parts replaced I'm pulling up? That was at the very bottom of the screen, and I found it by dragging the mouse all the way down the bottom, and it highlighted it for me. So I had these stray characters down there. So now that I don't have stray characters, and I line this up, let's see if we have any stray characters over here. No, I don't see any. So let's save and consume this, and there you go. So now it's a lot more like, click New. It works out perfectly size-wise for you. It puts in your dates received, date approved. Let's put in this date, and here are some notes about the phone call. And we can save those. Okay, let's go into the data entry again. Let's see what else we can do besides tabs. Okay, as I was mentioning before, I'm just making our screen a little bit bigger here, is up at the top here we have the toolbox. And right now the toolbox is showing us all the fields that are in the current table. So service call number isn't anywhere on the screen. So I can add that service call number and see it's no longer in the list. And we may need something else, labor costs. And again, I'll drag that on here, and labor cost is not in the list. So these are all the fields that are not added yet. Well, we may want to create a new field. So we're going to click here, New. And I may need a new, let's see, just a character field. Character field, I'm just going to drag that control here, and I'm going to call it my new character field 1. And I'll say finish. Now this is adding the field to the ACT database schema. So again, I'm an administrator, so I'm able to do this. And there's my new character field added to do it. So I can select any field type here, uppercase, picture, lowercase, whatever we need it to be. Checkbox, yes, there's no, and add those directly onto here. So that was new. Panels. Well, in the panels, we already found tab control, but we may want a true panel, which is just a colorized background, and we can actually add things into a panel, and then we can move the panel as a one-piece object. All right, so that's a panel. Again, panels you can move around. Okay, lists. Okay, remember I had the above the line, and I said these are all the contacts that are attached, and I removed them to make this a simple little dialog box. Well, I can bring those back at any time. So here is the contact, single line contact, and there that is. Now let's go and look at what this contact object does for us. So let's just say save. Okay, so here it is. We're currently attached to Chris Huffman. Well, we know that. We're on Chris Huffman's record. But we can change that at any time. That's what the ellipse button is for. I can come into here and say, well, I want it attached to Anthony and not Chris. I'll say OK. I'll say save. And see, that one is now removed from the list because I actually took it off of Chris's record and moved it to somebody else's. Now we can attach it to multiples too. I don't have to say remove it. I want to attach it to George and Chris. So if I say OK to that, we see George and Chris. I hit save. It still remains on Chris's record, and it's also on George's record. Now, if I start to add multiples, like say this is an event that you're having, you're doing a Thursday night series, and you're inviting 20 people, and you have, these people are attending. Well, what happens with this single line, of course, it starts to break down. Everybody's listed here, but as you can see, they're filling up this tab space. Now we can go into the designer and say, well, let's make this contact box a little bit wider. You know, okay, I can make it this wide. Okay, now I'm showing 4, but I have 20 attached. Well, this box is still going to break down. But what I can do is if I go back to my lists, instead of saying single line, which is what I chose first time, I'm just going to say contacts. And I'm going to bring this control here. Now I'm going to resize it a little bit so you can see what's happening here. As you can see, it's a list box, but let's go and look at it now. So as you can see, it's a list box of all the 5 contacts that are attached in a much more readable format. And right from here, I could still continue to add contacts. So I come into here and say, well, this person's now attending, this person's now attending, and you got the idea here. I'm going to try to fill up 20 different people here, and I get a list of those 20 people. Now I can say, well, this is a classroom that I'm filling up all the time, so I want this list box to be as tall as possible. So let me just come along into here, and I'm going to take this list box and make it a nice big tall list box. And let's get rid of this smaller one, contacts, because that single line just didn't work for us. And there we go. So now you got a sense of it. You can fill up all the contacts that are attached to this webinar, event, meeting, whatever you need it to be. You can see all of them. And what's nice is even when they're here, if I go to and click on John Chance, see it's hyperlinked. So if I want to go to George record, that's all I need to do. I just go onto their records. If I want to email one of these people, I can click on the email. If you have Axe email set up, that'll come forward. If you want to go to their website, I can click right here. This is the ACT Demo database, so I don't know if any of these websites are actually real. Let's go to it, and no, none of them are actually really real in the ACT Demo database. But that's what you can see with the list view. It's very interactive. You can use it to navigate, to search, and to email directly from. Okay, so let's go back into the designer. And let's take this object and make it smaller. Kind of bring it back to something more manageable. It's record by record rather than a whole event. And let's go back into lists. All right, let's go to lists. And let's just say this is back to a service call. So we have a service call, and it's going to only be attached to Chris Huffman, or one record, one user at a time. So we're going to put the smaller box in there. And we have our tabs, service state, date approved. We have our memo field here. But underneath it here, this is a service call. We want to start adding line items. So we want a child table. So we want to say, yeah, this is a service call, but it's a service call, and we're going to bill you for travel. We're going to bill you for the time the technician's there. We're going to bill you for parts and labor. So I want a list of all those billable events. Let's go to our list box. And underneath the list box, of course, we have the contacts and companies, but we also have things like equipment and pledges and time billed. So let's just take our time billed one, and let's drag that one over here. So it gives us a nice big area, and I'm going to resize this a little bit. I'm going to save and close this. Okay, so we are, let's go to a different record, somebody that doesn't have 100 users attached to it. Oh, this one still does, but we're going to leave it. So we have our tab pages, right, our information, but now we have our new time billed. So if I come down here into our time build area, I can add a new entry. Oh, time build project name was service call, ABC. Chris Hoffman, employee, was okayed by JPD. The build date was today, and description was parts and labor. And we'll say save. So now we have a parts and labor entry, and we can have multiple parts and labor entries. So project name is, saying service call XYZ. Same thing, employee information, service date, bill date. So we have that in here. Now, these fields, this is a custom table which you can design. So it can be any fields in here. I might want to capture the price or tax and all those different things. Once you have those fields set up inside of here, this child table has a columns option on here, and customize the columns. And I want to see the, let's just go to the project name, the employee, the hourly rate, hours rate, hours actual, hours billable. Right, so I have those hours on here. Now I'm not capturing them in here, so let's go into the designer. And here's our hours actual, hours billable, hours estimate. And we'll just save that. So this is information in here. And that's what we're saying. That information is being captured. So for this particular entry, we actually have these hours attached to it. Okay, let's go back into the designer. Now again, that designer, that was a list of child records, so we found that under list. Let's go to controls. These are some custom controls that you may need. Here's one called auto increment. That will auto increment the number that it's attached to. So if I say, oh, I want an auto increment field right here, it's going to say, well, what field do you want to auto increment? So I want the that new field, new character field, or service call number. There you go. I have a service call number which now gets auto incremented, and that'll show up there. I may need something more specific like numeric checkboxes, currency field, hot link, text boxes. Let's just use this currency text box. And again, it's going to ask us for what field, currency text box. And then over here, I need to give it the price, sorry, the label. So I can come along into the label and change it. So these are just specialized controls that do specialized things like auto numeric, even the auto numbering has properties to it which you can go in and change. Okay, our last panel, let's go back and forth within our designer, is the buttons over here. Now we quickly were on buttons earlier. That's how we got the save and cancel button in here. But we have buttons that can be from other areas, like you may have a button that says create an activity. So that's going to ask users what activity type that they want to create. Now that's done very simply. Again, I just added the button onto the screen, create an activity, and there's the create an activity. And by default, it says it's a call. We could change that around by going into the properties of the buttons. So here's a create activity. Down here, you're going to see a little thing that says add act code snippet. And here's where we can go into the editor to change the properties of these. All of these buttons, I'm just going to get to one, say, like create a note. We want to create a note one. Right? Application, insert note. It's that simple. Some of them are more simple than others. Create a history. And the script just looks like this. Record history. Okay? Some of them you can run your own script or write your own script. So inside of here, I can come along and change this and say, record history. And then I could say record history and then record a note. Now, I wouldn't type in here, I'd copy from the other two. But I could have a button that does two events at one time. I have a button that actually has condition. I can say if the date is greater than today plus 30 days, plus 30, do this. Let me put the cursor back in here. Now, this is in VB.net, so this isn't an exact. This is just me giving you the idea, because today plus 10 would be add days, so 10 days in the future. And do something here. Do something. Right? So the idea is that there's logic underneath these buttons. We've had one client come along and say they wanted to calculate the exchange rate. Well, we don't know what the exchange rate is. That's populated on the web. So there's a web service that the script writes, pulls that exchange rate, puts it into a calculation. So saying dollars, so saying the price equals the price times 1.06, and 1.06 might be the exchange rate for Canada at the moment, but this would have been a live feed from the web service. So there's a lot of things you can do in the code editors. Okay, save changes, and again, record histories. Here's our record history. Okay, I just want to leave you with that because there's a lot of options, a lot of features in the designer that you can get in and just start dragging onto the screens and see it. We really touch the surface because there's a lot of more specialized objects, way to attach objects together, but it's coming up on our half hour. So let me just thank everybody for coming, and have a great day. Thank you.